always wanted to be an actress. I think it is so much fun. I've been extras in movies.
I went downstairs and his face was covered in blood.
What if you only want to be an actor to get all of the attention and get out of trouble? This is Samantha Wohlford. She was a small-time YouTuber with big acting dreams, but she was also a mother of 5, and she would always complain about her difficult life to her YouTube followers. Then, her life took a sudden turn for the worse.
I have a home invasion. My niece is tied up.
Samantha was found gagged and tied to a banister inside her own home. Her husband had been attacked and kidnapped, she said. It was a terrifying story, and Samantha was in a state of shock. But the detectives had their doubts. Samantha seemed to have a knack for acting, but her lies were seeping through. What the detectives uncovered was a story much more chilling than what Samantha had originally told them. She was, plain and simple, a monster. What led Samantha to off her husband in such a cold, callous way? And were there any signs leading up to it? This is the full story of Samantha Wohlford.
And I'm telling you, all I know is the guy told me that they were suspects in a murder case. The first thing that popped in my head was that gun.
It all started with a call to the emergency services in Titus County, Texas on February 20th, 2015, just after midnight.
I have a home invasion. My niece is tied up.
She's tied up.
She is tied up and gagged. I am untying her. I can't get the north.
What is the victim's name?
Samantha Wohlford.
Ginger Kesterson, Samantha's aunt, phoned the police and reported a terrible crime. 3 masked men had broken into Samantha's home, tied her up, and kidnapped her husband, Dagan. Dagan's real name was Ernie Ibarra. He was a tattoo artist and a funny, happy-go-lucky person with lots of friends. When Dagan met Samantha in 2008, she already had twins from her first relationship. She was only 19 when she had them. But the two got on really well, and in 2014, they were married. Within a few years, they had 3 children together. This was no easy feat. The couple did not make a lot of money, and their relationship was not that solid. With 5 children under the roof between the ages of 1 and 7, things started to crumble quickly. People who knew the couple knew they were unhappy.
It looked to me like he was doing everything he could to keep the family financially afloat. He was working 2 jobs. She was not working.
Yeah, Samantha was a full-time YouTuber, but she made no money from it. Of course, that put a strain on the relationship. However, no one expected they would fall victim to a horrendous home invasion too.
Hi, Samantha. I know you're upset, but I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Do you need EMS?
No, they didn't do anything to be baby wife.
She's advising no, they only hit her once.
Okay.
I just asked my aunt if it was bruising or anything, and she said no.
After the 911 dispatcher spoke to Ginger, she asked to speak to Samantha directly. She only asked her one question, but Samantha proceeded to tell her the entire story, as if she was speaking directly to the law enforcement officers.
Okay, they hit you in the face?
Yeah, they had me tied up, and they dragged me down the stairs to face my husband, and when my husband went in to face me, they hit me in the face, like, backhands at me, and so he looked at me then, and they said, I thought that would get your attention, and I want you to stare at this woman. Do you want us to kill her? And he said no. And they said, then tell us the truth. And he said, I don't know anything.
Samantha went on and on. Although the dispatcher didn't stop her, this is not something you tell a 911 operator. Everything needs to be quick and to the point, so the dispatcher knows what emergencies there are and who to send over. Giving off unnecessary details unprompted can be a sign of deceit. At around 2 a.m., 2 officers arrived at Samantha and Ernie's address.
Sheriff's office.
I'm upstairs. I'm sorry, sir.
When Samantha greeted the officers, she seemed to be in a state of shock.
So walk me through what happened.
I don't honestly know what happened. I was in bed asleep and we heard a noise, and the second I was able to open my eyes, somebody grabbed me and jerked me out of the bed and slammed me down on the ground and started tying me up and put a knife to my throat.
When the detectives asked her if she could identify the 3 men, she said they were masked, but she did get one of their names.
One of them said, "Hey, Luke!" And the guy turned, but that's the only identifying anything I've got.
Why did she feel the need to change her voice and dramatize the story? Also, she'd told the dispatcher that just her face had been hit, but now she said she was slammed. The officer also noted how disinterested she seemed in finding her husband. She only mentioned his name when he asked her. Otherwise, she was focused on telling the story with lots of details and changing voices. And wait, why did her aunt call 911? Reportedly, Samantha was tied to a banister, but she managed to partially untie herself and call her mom. Her mom then sent Ginger over. But if she'd managed to partially untie herself, why didn't she call 911 right away? Also, remember how Samantha and Ernie had 5 children in that house? When the officers arrived, they were all asleep. Samantha said that they slept through the attack. They hadn't heard anything. How was that possible with the screaming, shouting, and the "Hey, Luke!"
Went downstairs and his face was covered in blood.
Samantha added a lot of dramatic detail to her home invasion story. She also added a whole side story that had the detectives thinking.
Samantha says they bring her downstairs and have her stand in front of him while they say, "How can you not appreciate what you have here? You have this beautiful woman here. But how can you not appreciate this? How could he treat her so badly?"
These sounded more like a wife's frustrations and resentments than something 3 men conducting a home invasion would state. So as the days progressed, the investigators looked into Samantha's history. That's when they uncovered her lifelong passion, her YouTube channel.
When you first saw the YouTube videos, it was more like, personable, and she was trying to do how-to types of videos. But as time went on, you saw her videos become much more darker, much more complaining about her relationship.
Indeed, Samantha's latest video showed her cursing and complaining about her ungrateful husband and the hardship of having 5 kids.
Hey YouTubers! Today a lot of shit pissed me off, so you guys get to listen to it.
I'm kind of screwed as far as dating goes because I date losers.
The detectives had psychologists and criminologists explore her YouTube path. It was interesting to see how, although she had very few followers, she acted like a star.
I think that Samantha had this perception that other people really cared about her life, and she fed into that perception.
In short, Samantha wanted attention, but instead of asking for it from her loved ones, she took to the internet to get validation. Ernie's frustration with it can be seen in the only video available of him and Samantha at home.
Not gonna light a cigarette?
Oh yeah, I forgot about him.
Because you got that f***ing iPad in your hands.
Where?
At least you're paying attention.
At this point, Samantha wasn't a main suspect. However, the detectives knew she knew more than she was letting on. Also, there were several inconsistencies in her story so far, and the scene did not match what she'd said.
Scene's not really making sense with what she's telling me. No.
So they invited her to an interview. She was confident she could play the victim role perfectly, but that interview would be her downfall. Back at her house, Samantha had told the officer that Ernie had probably been taken because of his dad.
They said his dad narked on someone and got their man thrown behind bars. And now they were taking revenge and taking someone from him.
During her interview, the detective asked her to expand on Ernie's dad.
His dad has a problem with getting involved in things that he don't need to be getting involved with.
Such as?
The detective also wanted to know how and why Samantha called her mom and not the emergency services.
My mother was the first number on my call list. I just used my face. And
so instead of calling 911 for help, you called your mother?
How do you press 911 with your face?
Well, how did you dial your mother with your face?
I didn't dial my mother. I just pushed the first thing that was on there. It had just happened to be my mom.
Yeah. The detective didn't buy it. Also, why so many inconsistent stories and unnecessary details?
Well, I think you know exactly who did this. I think the story's made up about your daddy, his daddy, and stuff like that. And I think you know exactly who did this, and I think you're scared.
When Samantha felt backed into a corner, she regressed right back to the victim role and started crying.
The only other thing.
Okay, see, I knew. You know, Sam, you know I'm not here lying to you. You know I know.
Samantha then said she had a suspicion about who had done this.
He gets to talking about
how a man should treat a woman that way and how you don't do those things to a person, and he's gonna deal with the situation. Samantha now told the detective that Ernie had been abusing her. When she told one of her friends about it, her boyfriend stepped in and threatened to off Ernie, a sort of vigilante justice for, once again, Samantha, the victim. She pointed the officers toward a certain John Rebel, but why was she suddenly adding this whole story into the mix?
So now all of a sudden, why are you bringing him out? Because you know that it was him.
Because
why do you know it was him?
I just have this feeling like it was. So they didn't mention Ernie's dad, or did they? As it turns out, Samantha pointed the detectives to a real person, Jonathan Sanford, and he did have a part to play in her scheme. John had just been released from prison after serving a sentence for SAing his own cousin. He was bad news, and he was Samantha's friend.
And he's really unapologetic about anything he did, illegal, wrong, immoral.
Jonathan was arrested alongside his brother-in-law, Jose Ponce. Samantha had given their names to the officers, but there was a third name she was not yet disclosing. However, the detectives had heard her say 3 masked men multiple times, so they did their own digging. After interrogating John and Jose, they arrested the third man, Octavius Lamar Rhymes. John had outright said that Octavius was in charge of offing Ernie.
He had been in the military. He was using drugs, amphetamine specifically. He wasn't doing anything productive, and that's kind of what put him in this situation.
Samantha was full of lies, but when John and Jose were arrested, they told the same consistent story. That doesn't make them look good, people. Remember what John had been convicted of before all this? And now they'd helped a woman unalive her husband for petty cash.
Samantha talking about her relationship with me and Tay and my sister-in-law and all that, and me trying to talk to her and help her out and all that because she seems like a good person to me. So yeah, I said I'd whoop his ass. I did say I'd hospitalize him.
According to John, he did react to Samantha's stories, but he didn't come up with the idea to off him. His wife did. Now he simply told the detectives he, Jose, and Octavius took Ernie to the woods, beat him, and used a gun on him. He even led the officers to the burial site.
Sanford, Ponce, and Rhymes had taken Ernie to a remote location. They walked Ernie through the woods. He was just in his boxers.
Definitely did.
The detectives now had a body, and this was an official homicide investigation. They even had 3 suspects locked up with full confessions. One of them had even taken them to the body. However, the detectives knew they had to close Samantha's story too. She was not a victim.
Things are just not piecing together with your story.
The officers confiscated Samantha's phone and looked at its records. There was a long back and forth between Samantha and Octavius, and in one message, Samantha advised Octavius to turn off Ernie's phone.
Kill Day's phone, shut that down. Day is a nickname that Ernie Ibarra went by.
There was also a 30-second call between her and Octavius after 911 was called. The image was complete. Samantha was a 24-year-old mother of 5 with immense frustrations. She had no money, no time for herself, she did not get on well with her husband, and her dreams of being a star were not picking up.
I've had a lot of people stop me and ask about how I deal with things. Honestly, it's hard.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people stopped you to ask you this. You don't exactly exude wisdom. It's honestly sickening how Samantha never thought for 1 second about her 5 children. They were aged between 1 and 7. They needed their parents. Now, they had neither. And how do you grow up into a sane person knowing your mom offed your dad?
Samantha had this warped way of thinking, this warped mental state, that this was going to be the way that she got out of her relationship with Ernie.
In a way, Samantha got the attention she always wanted. Perhaps she would have preferred getting the widow/victim type of attention, but husband killer will do too, right? John and Jose pleaded guilty to abduction and murder. They were sentenced to 50 years each. Octavius was convicted in 2 states, receiving 98 years behind bars. Samantha also had 2 trials, kidnapping and murder. She feigned ignorance, forgetfulness, cried on demand, and reminded everyone she was a victim, not a monster. Even now, with all the evidence, she thought she could act her way out of prison. I think this footage of her in the interrogation room taunting the officers just goes to show how self-absorbed she was. She also claimed she was nice and sweet on her YouTube account.
Guys, I'm really nice. I love people. I like get along with people so well, and they love me, but don't cross me.
She was found guilty on both counts and sentenced to 99 years. Thankfully, she's off the streets, but it's heartbreaking to think about what her children will have to go through. This is not a story you can erase from your past, and no amount of years behind bars can make up for Ernie's death and the trauma his poor children have experienced. Thanks for watching, you guys. What are your thoughts on this case? Do you know of other similar stories? Let me know in a comment, and before you go, make sure you like and subscribe.